Welcome. Tonight, we'll wander quietly through rooms time has left behind. These are spaces once filled with footsteps, whispers, and warm light, now resting in silence, still holding the echoes of lives once lived. As you listen, let your thoughts soften. There's nothing to rush, and nothing you need to do. Just the gentle sound of raining, the hush of rain outside, and these stories, not of great battles or kings, but of dust, memory, and quiet wonder. A forgotten schoolhouse, a queen's chamber waiting in stillness, a ship's cabin adrift in time, an artist's studio, and touched by the years. These are not haunted places. They are remembering places. Let them speak to you slowly and carry you peacefully into rest. Let us begin. The Forgotten Schoolhouse, a gentle journey through time. The heavy oak door yields with a soft groan, its iron hinges protesting after decades of silence. You step across the threshold into a world suspended in amber light, where time moves as slowly as the dust motes that dance in the afternoon sun. The air holds the scent of old wood and parchment, of chalk dust and the faint sweetness of dried lavender that once hung in bundles from the rafters. This is the schoolhouse of Little Thornwick, built in the year of our Lord 1603, when the world was smaller and children learned their letters by the light of diamond-paned windows. The room breathes with the memory of young voices, though now only the gentle settling of timber and the whisper of wind through the eaves break the profound quiet. The teacher's desk. At the far end of the room, beneath the largest window, stands the teacher's desk, a sturdy piece of English oak that has weathered for centuries with quiet dignity. The wood has darkened to the color of strong tea, its surface worn smooth by countless hands and hours of patient instruction. A thin layer of dust covers everything, but through it you can still make out the careful scratches and ink stains that tell their own stories. The desktop slopes gently, designed to catch the precious light that filters through the mullioned window above. On its surface, half hidden beneath a veil of dust, lies an inkwell of pewter, its dark mouth still holding the ghostly remains of iron galling. Beside it, a quill pen rests as if its owner had only just set it down, perhaps to tend to a restless child or to add another log to the fire. There's a leather-bound ledger here, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The cover bears the name Master Edmund Blackwood in faded gold lettering. You dare not touch it, but you can imagine the careful records within attendance marked in neat columns. Notes on each child's progress, perhaps a pressed flower or two from the school garden that once bloomed beyond these walls. The chair behind the desk is a simple thing, its rush sheet worn thin by years of use. The back is carved with Tudor roses, and you can picture Master Blackwood settling into it each morning, his scholar's robe arranged carefully, his eyes scanning the room to ensure all his charges were present and ready for the day's lessons. The students' benches before the teacher's desk, arranged in 3 neat rows, stand the students' benches, long, low seats that accommodated children of all sizes. Each bench is paired with a table, and both are carved from the same honey-colored oak that seems to glow even in the dim light. The wood has been polished smooth by generations of small hands and worn clothing, creating a patina that no craftsman could replicate. The first bench closest to the teacher shows the most wear. This is where the youngest children sat, the ones who were just learning to hold a quill properly, who struggled with their letters and needed the most guidance. The edge of the table is worn down from countless small arms resting upon it, and you can see the faint impressions where slate boards were placed again and again. On the second bench, someone has carved a small rose into the wood, likely a girl named Rose, or perhaps the young romantic thinking of the roses that bloomed in the cottage gardens. The carving is delicate, done with care and patience, probably during a long afternoon when the lesson had turned to penmanship and young hands grew restless. The third bench, at the back of the room, bears the marks of older students, boys whose voices had begun to change, girls who were nearly ready for marriage. Here the carvings are bolder, initials intertwined with hearts, the year 1615 scratched deep into the wood, and what appears to be a tiny ship, perhaps carved by a boy who dreamed of sailing beyond the village boundaries to London or even to the New World. The chalkboard, where you might expect to find a blackboard, there is instead a large slate mounted on the wall behind the teacher's desk. The surface is dark gray, almost black, and though it has been cleaned countless times, ghost images remain: the faint outline of letters, the shadow of a sun, the trace of a map that once showed the counties of England. The slate is framed in dark wood, and along its bottom edge runs a narrow shelf that once held pieces of chalk and the wooden pointer Master Black would use to indicate letters and words. A few fragments of chalk remain, worn down to tiny nubs that would barely mark the slate, but you can imagine the soft scratch of chalk on stone, the gentle tap of the pointer, the rustling of children shifting on their benches as they copied their lessons. Below the slate, barely visible in the shadows, hangs a horn book, a paddle-shaped piece of wood with a sheet of parchment protected by a thin layer of horn. The parchment displays the alphabet in carefully formed letters, along with the Lord's Prayer and a simple blessing. This was how the youngest children learned their letters, tracing each character with their finger until they could form the shapes with their own hand. The fireplace, along the side wall. A large stone fireplace dominates the room, its hearth black with the soot of countless fires. The chimney breast is wide and tall, designed to draw the smoke up and away from the precious books and papers that filled the room. Above the mantel, carved into the stone, is the date 1603 along with a simple cross and the words in Domino Confido, "In the Lord I trust." The fireplace tells stories of warmth and comfort, of cold mornings when Master Blackwood would arrive early to build up the fire before his students came shivering through the door. You can imagine the children gathering close on the coldest days, their breath visible in the air until the fire caught and began to push back the chill. On the hearth, a few pieces of charred wood remain, and beside them sits an iron pot that once held water for washing slates and mixing ink. The pot is rust-stained now, but you can picture it filled with clear water from the village well, steam rising from its surface on cold mornings when the fire was burning bright. The andirons that once held the logs are still in place, wrought iron figures shaped like stylized lines, their metal darkened by centuries of heat and smoke. Between them, a small pile of ash remains, the last remnant of fires that warmed the room and lit the pages of books that opened young minds to the wider world. The windows of the schoolhouse are its glory, tall casements with diamond-shaped panes of glass that catch and scatter the light like jewels. Each pane is slightly different, hand-blown and imperfect, creating a gentle distortion that makes the world outside seem dreamlike and distant. The morning light streams through these windows, painting rectangles of gold on the wooden floor. Dust motes dance in these beams, rising and falling in the gentle currents of air that move through the room. It's a mesmerizing sight, this slow ballet of dust and light. And you can imagine children gazing out these windows during long lessons, their minds wandering to the fields and forests beyond. The window seats are wide and deep, cushioned with faded fabric that might once have been red or blue but has faded to the color of old roses. These seats served as reading nooks for the more advanced students, places where they could sit with their books and practice their letters in the best light available. On the sill of the largest window, someone has left a small wooden top, its paint worn away by eager hands. Beside it lies a handful of colored stones, perhaps counters for learning arithmetic, or simply treasures collected by a child who loved the feel of smooth pebbles in their pocket. The coat hooks along the back wall, a row of wooden pegs serves as hooks for the children's outer garments. Even now, you can imagine the cloaks and coats that once hung here off wool for the poorest children, fine fabric for those whose families had prospered, all of them damp with morning dew or afternoon rain. The pegs are carved from the same oak as the rest of the room, each one worn smooth by the constant hanging and retrieving of garments. Some are stained darker than others, marked by years of wet wool and the oils from small hands. You can picture the daily ritual of children arriving, hanging up their coats, and settling into their places for another day of learning. Below the pegs, a long wooden bench provides a place to sit while changing from outdoor shoes to the soft slippers that were worn inside the schoolhouse. The bench is worn smooth, its surface marked with the impressions of countless children who sat here to untie their laces and adjust their clothing. The bookshelves. In the corner nearest the fireplace, a tall bookshelf stands like a guardian of knowledge. Its shelves are nearly empty now, but you can see the outlines where books once stood, rectangular shadows in the dust that speak of volumes long since removed or crumbled to dust. A few books remain, their leather bindings cracked and faded. One appears to be a Bible, its pages edged with gold that has tarnished to a dull bronze. Another might be a primer for teaching reading, its cover decorated with a faded illustration of children at play. There's also what looks like a book of songs, its spine bearing the remnants of elaborate tooling that once made it a thing of beauty. The highest shelf holds a collection of curiosities, a bird's nest, carefully preserved, perhaps brought in by a child to share with the class. There's also a collection of pressed flowers between sheets of parchment, their colors faded, but their shapes still recognizable. These were the teaching tools of an earlier age, when children learned about the natural world by observing and collecting rather than by reading about it in books. The school bell. Hanging from a beam near the door is the school bell, a bronze bell no larger than a child's fist, but with a voice that once called the children of Little Thornwick to their lessons. The rope that once hung from its clapper has long since rotted away, but you can imagine the sound it made, clear and sweet, carrying across the village green to summon young minds to learning. The bell is green with age now, its bronze surface covered with the patina that comes from centuries of exposure to the air. But when you look closely, you can still see the fine craftsmanship that went into its making, the delicate molding around its rim, the small cross embossed on its side, the tiny signature of the bell founder who cast it so long ago. This bell marked the rhythm of the school day, calling the children to morning prayers, signaling the end of lessons, ringing out the hours of study and reflection. It was the heartbeat of the little school, the sound that organized the days and seasons of learning. The ceiling beams above your head. The ceiling beams stretch from wall to wall, massive timbers that have supported the roof for more than 4 centuries. These beams are carved from oak that was already ancient when the schoolhouse was built, trees that may have stood in the English forests since the time of the Normans. The beams are darkened with age and smoke from the fireplace. Their surface is marked with the adzy marks of the craftsmen who shaped them. Here and there, you can see Roman numerals carved into the wood, marks left by the carpenters to show how the beams should be assembled, a practice that connected these builders to their medieval ancestors. Hanging from one beam is a dried bundle of herbs, rosemary perhaps, or thyme, placed there long ago to freshen the air and ward off illness. The bundle is brittle now, its leaves crumbling, but you can still catch a faint hint of its aromatic past. The floor beneath your feet, the wide planks of the floor tell their own stories. The wood is worn smooth by countless footsteps, polished to a soft glow by the passage of time. Each plank is different, some are wide, some narrow, all are marked with the character that comes from centuries of use. Near the teacher's desk, the floor is worn in a distinctive pattern, where Master Blackwood paced back and forth during his lessons. You can trace the path of his daily walks, the route he took as he moved from student to student, checking their work, offering encouragement, correcting their mistakes with patience and kindness. In front of the fireplace, the floor is marked with small burned sparks that jumped from the fire and left their mark on the wood. These scars are part of the room's history, reminders of the days when fire was both friend and potential enemy. when warmth and light came at the cost of constant vigilance. The corners. In the corners of the room, shadows gather and memories seem to linger. The corner by the window holds a small stool, perhaps used by the youngest children who needed to sit closer to the ground. The stool is worn smooth, its legs wobbly with age, but you can imagine a small child perched upon it, feet dangling, eyes bright with the excitement of learning something new. Another corner holds a collection of slates, flat pieces of stone, that served as individual writing surfaces for the students. Most are cracked now, their surfaces scarred by the sharp points of slate pencils, but you can still make out the faint traces of letters and numbers. The practice exercises that help young minds master the basics of reading and arithmetic. The corner nearest the door holds a water bucket and basin, simple necessities for washing hands and faces, for cleaning slates and quills. The bucket is wooden, its staves held together by iron hoops that have rusted over the centuries. The basin is pewter, dented and worn, but still functional after all these years. The ghosts of learning dot as you stand in the center of the room. Letting your eyes adjust to the golden light, you begin to sense the presence of all those who came before. The air seems to shimmer with the memory of young voices reciting their lessons, the soft scratch of quills on parchment, the gentle correction of a teacher who understood that learning is a slow and patient process. You can almost hear the morning prayers, the recitation of the alphabet, the careful pronunciation of Latin phrases that would serve these children well in their later lives. The room holds the echo of laughter to the quiet joy of children who had mastered a difficult lesson, who had pleased their teacher with their progress, who had discovered the pleasure of learning something new. There's a sense of community here, of children from different families and different circumstances coming together in the pursuit of knowledge. The merchant's son sat beside the farmer's daughter, the blacksmith's boy learned alongside the miller's twins. In this room, all were equal in their quest for learning. All were valued for their unique contributions to the community of learners. The seasons of the school. The schoolhouse has witnessed the turning of many seasons, each one bringing its own rhythm to the daily lessons. In spring, the windows would be thrown open to let in the fresh air and the sound of birdsong. The children would bring in branches of apple blossoms, and Master Blackwood would use them to teach about the cycle of growth and renewal. Summer brought long days and warm afternoons when lessons might be conducted in the shade of the oak tree that grew beside the school. The children would gather on the grass, their slates balanced on their knees, while Master Blackwood read to them from the great books that had shaped the minds of scholars for centuries. Autumn was a time of harvest and preparation, when the children helped to gather fuel for the winter fires and to prepare the schoolhouse for the cold months ahead. The room would be filled with the scent of apples and the sound of children working together to ready their sanctuary for the challenges of winter. Winter was the season of close community, when the fire burned bright and the children huddled together for warmth. These were the months when the deepest learning took place, when the long hours of darkness were filled with the soft glow of candles and the quiet intensity of minds engaged in riotous study. The end of days. As the decades passed, the world beyond the schoolhouse began to change. The children grew up and moved away, seeking their fortunes in the growing cities or the distant colonies. Master Blackwood grew old and was replaced by younger teachers who brought new ideas and new method. Eventually, the day came when the last child left the little schoolhouse, when the fire was banked for the final time, when the door was closed and locked. But the room remembers them all, every child who learned to read within these walls, every teacher who shared their knowledge, every moment of discovery and growth that took place in this sacred space. The eternal present. Now, as you stand in the quiet room, you become part of its story. Your presence joins the countless others who have stood in this place, who have felt the weight of history and the power of learning. The dust motes continue their slow dance in the golden light, the shadows shift and change as the sun moves across the sky, and the ancient timbers settle with the soft sighs of centuries. The schoolhouse of Little Thornwick stands as a testament to the enduring power of education, to the patient work of teachers who understood that learning is not a destination, but a journey. In this quiet room, surrounded by the gentle ghosts of the past, you can feel the continuity of human curiosity, the eternal desire to understand and to grow. The afternoon light begins to fade, casting longer shadows across the worn wooden floor, but the room remains peaceful, holding its memories like a precious treasure, waiting for the next visitor who will appreciate its quiet beauty and its profound significance. In this place, time moves slowly, gently, like the dust motes dancing in the golden light, and the stories of the past live on in the whispered sighs of the ancient timbers. As you prepare to leave this sanctuary of learning, you carry with you the peace of this place, the gentle rhythm of its breathing walls, the soft echo of voices that once filled these spaces with the joy of discovery. The schoolhouse of Little Thornwick will remain patient and enduring, a keeper of memories and a guardian of the sacred trust between teacher and student, between past and future, between the world that was and the world that is yet to come. The door closes softly behind you, but the memory of the room remains a place of quiet beauty, of gentle learning, of the eternal human quest for knowledge and understanding. And in your dreams tonight, you may find yourself once again in that golden light, surrounded by the peaceful presence of all those who have walked this path before you, all those who have found in learning the greatest adventure of all, the chamber of stillness. Tonight, we don't step into a bustling castle, nor a windswept moor. Tonight, we slip through a hidden door untouched for centuries. Sealed with a heavy sigh after a queen simply vanished, we enter her bedchamber, not to solve a mystery, but simply to be within its quiet embrace. Feel the cool, still air settle around you like a held breath finally released. It smells ancient, my friend, a complex fragrance of undisturbed dust, the ghost of beeswax candles, the faint, sweet decay of dried petals, and something else, something floral and melancholy, clinging like a forgotten dream. Before us, time has pulled. Centuries have settled here, not as decay, but as a deep, velvety silence. Moonlight, thick as cream, pours through a single tall window where a pane is missing. It spills across the stone floor, illuminating swirling galaxies of dust motes dancing. In its slow beam, this is our lantern. Let your eyes adjust to the gentle gloom beyond its silver path. First, the curtains, great swathes of midnight blue velvet hang heavily around the enormous canopied bed and flanking the window. They are the color of a deep winter sky just before true nightfall. Reach out a tentative finger, feel them, not stiff, but soft, incredibly soft, like the fur of a slumbering beast. Yet beneath that softness, a profound weight. Centuries of stillness have pressed into their fibers. They hang perfectly straight, undisturbed, frozen in their last drawn position. Touch the fabric near the hem there, beneath the dust, a slight roughness, perhaps where nervous fingers long ago worried the nap while gazing out that same moonlit window. See how the moonlight catches a single thread of silver embroidery near the top. A crescent moon and a single star, almost hidden, a quiet emblem, stitched by patient hands. Now let the moonlight guide us to the vanity. It stands sentinel near the window, pale wood bleached almost silver by time and neglect. Upon its surface, objects rest like islands in a sea of dust. Come closer, see the mirror. It's large, oval, framed in tarnished silver that was once bright. But the glass is cracked, not shattered violently, but bearing a single, delicate fissure, like a frozen tear track running from top to bottom. Peer into it, your reflection is fractured, blurred, seen through a veil of fine gray powder and the imperfection of the glass. Who was the last face it truly reflected clearly? Perhaps a queen contemplating her crown, or maybe just the weary lines around her eyes at day's end. The crack doesn't mar the reflection. It softens it, makes it ethereal, part of the room's dream. Beside the mirror, a collection of small perfume bottles crystal and cut glass, stoppered with tarnished silver or cloudy crystal knobs. Lift one gently, oh so gently. Feel its cool weight. The glass is thick, beautifully faceted. Hold it up to the moonlight beams inside, a residue, thick as honey. Dark amber in color clings to the bottom. Bring it slowly towards your nose, not too close. There, can you catch it? Not a strong scent, but a whisper. Roses, certainly, deep and velvety, but underneath a hint of spice, like crushed cloves, and something earthy, like that of a root. The scent of a woman who loved complexity, who savored the richness of the world. Place it back exactly as it was, leaving only the faintest disturbance in the dust. Its neighbor holds a paler liquid, now evaporated to a mere golden stain, perhaps vanilla and orange blossom. A different mood captured in glass. And here, a pair of gloves, kid leather, impossibly fine, the color of pale cream. One lies flat, palm up, fingers slightly curled, as if waiting to be filled. The other is turned, resting on its back. They look small, delicate. Touch one feather lightly with a single fingertip. The leather is cool, slightly dry, but still supple beneath its coating of dust. Imagine the hand that filled them, slender fingers, perhaps a ring worn on the right index finger leaving the faintest indent you can almost see. Were they worn for a state dinner, or simply to ward off an evening chill in this high stone room? They speak of grace, of a life where even the smallest details held weight. Now beneath the gloves, half hidden, journal bound in faded green leather, its spine cracked with age. The pages are thick, creamy vellum. Open it slowly, carefully. The binding sighs. The ink has faded, not to nothing, but to a soft sepia brown. Like weak tea, the handwriting is elegant, flowing, but small. Lean close. Don't try to decipher every word. Let the shapes of the letters, the rhythm of the lines wash over you. Here a date, the 17th of frost moon, below, perhaps a description of the first snowfall seen from this window. Further on, a pressed flower, a tiny, fragile violet, its purple bleached to gray. On another page, a single line stands clearer. The silence in the gardens today was profound. The rest is a soft brown blur. It feels private, thoughtful, not the record of a ruler, but of a soul who noticed the quiet moments. Shift focus towards the writing desk, a little way from the vanity. And here, at a smaller writing desk pushed against the wall, half-written letter, The paper is thick, creamy, one corner lifted slightly as if abandoned mid-thought. A cool pen rests beside it, its nib long dried into a hard, black point. An inkwell sits open. The ink inside evaporated to a thick, dark crust. Lean over the page. The same elegant hand, but here the ink is darker, the letters perhaps formed with a little more pressure. The salutation is clear. My dearest Alara, a name that sounds like distant wind chimes. The next lines flow. The court buzzes like trapped bees today, all noise and little sense. I long for the quiet of the West Library, or better still, our walk by the moonlit lake last summer. Remember the nightingales. Their song seemed to weave silver threads through the dark. And then it stops mid-sentence. Their song seemed to. What did it seem to do? Fill the soul, pierce the heart, weave a spell. The sentence hangs unfinished, suspended in time. There's no sign of distress, only a thought interrupted, perhaps by a summons, or simply by the weariness that comes with dusk. Who was Alara? A sister, a cherished friend far away. The letter speaks of intimacy, of shared memories, of a longing for simplicity amidst grandeur. Turn slowly towards the heart of the room. Now, let us approach the bed ***. It is a vast island of carved dark wood and fading fabric, dominating the room beneath its half-drawn canopy curtains. The mattress, once plush, sags gently in the middle, cradled by the frame. The counterpane is embroidered silk, once likely a vibrant tapestry of colors, blues, greens, golds. Now, time has softened it to muted pastels, like a watercolor painting left in the sun. The embroidered scenes, perhaps mythical beasts, gardens, stars, are still visible, but their details are blurred, their threads worn thin. Feel the fabric. It's cool, slightly stiff, whispering secrets of lost vibrancy under your touch. Plump pillows, their cases of fine linen yellowed with age, still hold the faintest suggestion of an indentation. Did she sleep curled on her side or lying straight, staring up at the canopy? The air around the bed feels thickest, most deeply still. It holds the echo of countless nights of sleep, of dreams woven and unraveled, of silence and disturbed by breath for generations. Move slowly around the room, letting the moonlight touch other objects. Stop. Look there, near the cold fireplace, a low, comfortable chair, upholstered in tapestry fabric echoing the bedspread. Beside it, a small table holds a ***, stack of books ***. Lean down. The leather bindings are cracked, the titles faded. Gently ease one out. Poultry, another seems a treatise on botany, its pages filled with intricate, hand-colored illustrations of flowers and herbs, lavender, rosemary, night-blooming cereus. A third is a volume of ancient myths, its pages thick. These were not books of state, but of personal solace, of imagination, and the natural world. Perhaps she read here by the firelight. The only sound, the turning of pages and the settling of logs. Near the door, almost hidden in shadow, stands a tall *** wardrobe. Its doors are slightly ajar. Inside, hanging like silent watchers, are gowns, silks and satins, velvets and fine wools, colors that were once jewel-bright, emerald, sapphire, deep ruby, now softened to dusty moss, twilight blue, and the faintest blush of rose. Touch the sleeve of one. The fabric is fragile, cool. Feel the intricate beadwork on another, tiny glass beads like captured dewdrops, still catching the faintest glimmer of moonlight. They hang suspended, waiting for a form that will never again fill them, a life that moved on beyond these walls. Pause longer here. Let the weight of stillness deepen. Breathe in the quiet. My friend, listen to the profound silence. It's not empty, this silence. It is full of the scent of old roses and dust, full of the memory of moonlight on velvet, full of the echo of a quill scratching on paper, full of the soft sigh of someone turning in sleep. It holds the weight of the perfume in the bottles, the yearning in the unfinished letter, the comfort of the well-worn books, the elegance of the empty gloves. This room is not a tune, nor a puzzle to be solved. It is a vessel carefully crafted, then gently set down, undisturbed. The queen, she stepped out, perhaps through the door we cannot see, perhaps into a garden, perhaps into another life entirely. We don't know why the door was sealed. Was it grief, superstition, or simply a profound respect for a space that held her essence? It doesn't matter now. What remains is the quiet testament of how she was within these walls, her love of deep color and soft textures, her private thoughts in sepia ink, her connection to a faraway friend, her solace in poetry and flowers, her appreciation for a fine scent, a comfortable chair, the view from her window, her interrupted senses, and her neatly placed gloves. The moonlight moves imperceptibly across the floor. It touches the edge of the bed now, gilding the faded embroidery. The dust motes continue their slow, eternal dance. The crack in the mirror holds the moonlight like a secret. The scent of amber and rose is the faintest sigh on the cool air. This is how memory lives, my dear listener. Not always in loud stories or dramatic endings. Often it lives like this, in the stillness, in the objects left just so, in the undisturbed dust, in the lingering scent trapped in glass, in the curve of an unworn glove, in the silence after an unfinished thought. It seeps into the velvet, the wood, the very air, becoming part of the quiet architecture of a place. Time hasn't erased her here. Time has preserved her, not her form, not her voice, but her atmosphere, her way of being in this small, private kingdom. The room remembers. It holds the echo of her presence with a tenderness that centuries had not diminished. Feel that quiet wonder, that gentle melancholy. It's the recognition of life lived deeply and personally, then gently released. It's the beauty found in stillness, in the patient endurance of ordinary things that once held meaning. Let this deep peace, this ancient quiet, settle over you now, like the dust, like the moonlight, like the scent of forgotten roses. Let the stillness of centuries cradle you. There is no mystery to solve here, only a profound and quiet beauty to absorb, a beauty woven from absence, from memory held in velvet and ink and dust. Sleep now, cradled by stillness. Let the quiet wonder of this sealed chamber drift you into dreams as soft and deep as the dust on midnight velvet. Sleep, surrounded by the gentle, enduring memory of things. The captain's silent quarters, a voyage through memory. The heavy door yields to your touch with the softest whisper of brass hinges that have not moved in decades. You step across the threshold into a world suspended between sea and sky, between memory and dreams. Here in the captain's quarters of the merchant vessel celestial grace time has forgotten to pass, leaving everything exactly as it was on that final morning when the tide called and the anchor was weighed for the last time. That air holds the essence of the sea salt and cedar, aged leather, and the faint sweetness of long extinguished pipe tobacco. It is the breath of countless voyages, of storms weathered and calm seas crossed, of mornings when the sun painted the ocean gold and evenings when stars reflected in the endless dark waters like scat aired diamonds. The captain's cabin, the room, wraps around you like an embrace, its curved walls following the gentle arc of the ship's hull. Every surface is crafted from rich mahogany that has deepened over the years to the color of dark honey, its grain flowing like frozen waves in the perpetual twilight that filters through the stern window. The wood speaks of master craftsmen who understood that a ship's cabin must be both functional and beautiful, a sanctuary where a man might find peace during the long months at sea. The ceiling above your head is low and intimate, crossed by sturdy beams that have flexed with 10,000 swells without ever breaking. From these beams hang brass fittings that once supported hammocks and sea chests, oil lamps, and the precious chronometer that kept the ship's time across the measureless ocean. Now they catch what little light remains, glowing softly like captured stars in the gentle gloom. The floorboards beneath your feet are worn smooth by the captain's daily pacing, polished to a soft sheen by decades of salt spray and careful tending. Each plank fits perfectly against its neighbor, sealed tight against the sea's eternal attempt to reclaim what belongs to the land. Here and there, small brass fittings mark where furniture was once bolted down, ready to withstand the wildest storms the Atlantic could conjure. The great stern windows dot at the far end of the cabin. A magnificent bank of windows spans the entire width of the stern, offering what was once a commanding view of the ship's wake and the endless horizon beyond. These windows are works of art in themselves, thick panes of glass set in frames of carved mahogany, each one slightly different from its neighbors. Hand-blown and fitted with the care of true craftsmen, the glass has taken on a golden patina, with age like old amber that holds the light and transforms it into something magical. Through these windows, the captain once watched the sun rise and set over waters that stretched to the very edge of the world. He saw storms approach like dark mountains walking across the sea, and he witnessed calms so profound that the ocean became a mirror reflecting the infinite sky. Now the windows look out onto a different kind of eternity, their view obscured by the gentle haze of time. But if you look closely, you can still see the ghost impressions of salt spray on the glass, the faint tracery left by countless waves that once crashed against the stern as the celestial grace drove through heavy seas toward distant shores. The window seat below runs the full width of the stern, cushioned with faded blue fabric that might once have been the color of deep ocean water. The cushions are worn smooth, shaped by years of the captain sitting here in the early morning hours, watching the dawn break over the sea while he planned the day's course and contemplated the mystery ease of wind and waved up the captain's desk. Before the great window stands the captain's desk, a masterpiece of maritime furniture that served as both workspace and altar to the art of navigation. Built of the same rich mahogany as the cabin walls, the desk is fitted with countless small drawers and compartments, each designed to hold the precious instruments and documents that guided the ship across the trackless ocean. The desktop is a work of art in itself, inlaid with contrasting woods that form a compass rose pointing toward all the cardinal directions. The surface is scarred by years of used ink stains from hurried calculations, small burns from candles that flickered through long nights of navigation, the circular marks left by countless cups of coffee grown cold while the captain worked through complex problems of wind and current. The desk's pigeonholes are filled with the tools of the navigator's trade, rolled charts tied with faded ribbon, brass dividers green with age, a magnifying glass whose lens still catches the light like a captive star. There are quill pens with their tips carefully cut, their feathers still perfect after all these years, and small bottles of ink that have long since dried to powder but still carry the faint scent of oak gall and iron. A large ledger lies open on the desktop, its pages yellow with age but still legible in the dim light. The captain's handwriting flows across the pages in neat columns, records of wind and weather, the ship's position at noon each day, notes about the crew's health, and the condition of the sails and rigging. This was his dialogue with the sea, his careful record of each day's conversation with wind and wave. The unfinished entry on the open page before you, the captain's final entry, remains incomplete. The ink long dried, but the words still clear. In the gentle light, 15th day of September, in the year of our Lord 1784. Wind from the southwest, gentle but steady, the barometer holds fair, though there are mare's tails in the western sky that speak of weather to come. We have made good progress, logging near 8 knots through the morning watch. The crew remains in good spirits, though young Matthews shows signs of the fever that has been. The entry stops there, the quill set aside as if the captain intended to return in just a moment to finish his thoughts. Perhaps he was called to the deck by some urgency. Or maybe he simply paused to consider his words, planning to complete the entry when he returned from his evening rounds. But the moment never came, and now the unfinished sentence hangs in the air like a question that will never be answered. Beside the journal lies a brass chronometer, its face dark and still. This was the ship's most precious instrument, the timepiece that allowed the captain to calculate the ship's longitude by comparing local noon with the time at Greenwich. The chronometer is housed in a beautifully crafted case of brass and mahogany, its gimbals designed to keep it level regardless of the ship's motion. Now it rests in perfect stillness, its hands frozen at some forgotten hour when time itself seemed to pause. The charts and maps, spread across one corner of the desk, is a collection of charts that tells the story of the celestial grace's many voyages. These are not the clean, precise maps of modern navigation, but hand-drawn charts created by captains and navigators who learned the sea's secrets through long experience and careful observation. The largest chart shows the North Atlantic, its coastlines drawn with the confident strokes of someone who knew every headland and harbor from personal experience. The waters are marked with soundings taken by lead line, the depths recorded in the neat figures that meant the difference between safe passage and disaster. Compass roses bloom like flowers across the chart surface, their ornate design showing not only direction, but the magnetic variation that must be accounted for in these waters. Trade routes are marked in red ink, showing the paths that connected the old world with the new. The lines that bound together the ports of London and Bristol with those of Boston and Charleston. These routes were the lifelines of empire, the invisible highways that carried goods and ideas, hopes and dreams across the vast expanse of the Atlantic. Smaller charts show details of specific harbors, the approaches to Portsmouth, the tricky entrance to Savannah, the lighthouse that marked the safe channel into Boston Harbor. These charts are annotated with the captain's own observations, notes about tides and currents, warnings about hidden rocks, recommendations for the best anchorages in different weather conditions. Asterisk the navigation instruments on a shelf beside the desk. The captain's collection of navigation instruments waits in silent readiness. There is a sextant of brass and ebony, its mirrors still perfect after all these years, capable of measuring the angle between sun and horizon with the precision that meant the difference between reaching port safely and wandering lost on the trackless ocean. A brass compass sits in its wooden case, its needle long since settled but still pointing toward magnetic north with unwavering dedication. The compass card is a work of art, painted with the traditional 32 points of the wind, each one named and decorated with flourishes that turned a simple instrument into something beautiful as W. L as functional dividers of various sizes rest in felt-lined cases, their points still sharp enough to pierce a chart. These were the captain's most basic tools, used to measure distances and plot courses. To walk off the miles between one port and another, their brass has developed the green patina of age, but their precision remains undiminished by the passage of time. The captain's personal effects. On the smaller table beside the desk, the captain's personal belongings wait as if he might return at any moment to claim them. A silver pocket watch lies closed, its case engraved with an anchor and the words fair winds and following seas, the sailor's traditional blessing for safe voyages. The watch has stopped, its hands pointing to an hour that has no meaning now, but its gaze still catches the light like captured starshine. Beside the watch lies a leather wallet, worn soft by years of handling. Inside, barely visible through the cracked leather, are letters from home correspondents that followed the ship from port to port, carrying news of family and friends across the vast distances that separated a sailor from those he owed. The paper has yellowed with age, but you can still make out the careful script of feminine handwriting, the loving words that bridged the gap between sea and shore. A small wooden box holds the captain's most precious possessions, a locket of gold that might contain the portrait of a beloved wife or daughter, a seal ring engraved with his family's coat of arms, a few coins from distant ports that served as souvenirs of exotic shores. These intimate objects speak of the man behind the professional facade, reminders that even the most experienced sea captain carried pieces of home in his heart. The cabin's library, along one wall. Built-in shelves hold the captain's library, a carefully chosen collection of books that provided both practical knowledge and spiritual comfort during the long months at sea. The volumes are bound in leather that has darkened with age, their spines decorated with gold tooling that has faded but not disappeared. Here are the essential works of navigation. Bowditch's * New American Practical Navigator *, well thumbed and annotated. Moore's * Navigation New Modelled *, its pages marked with the captain's own calculations, and the annual * Nautical Almanac *, providing the astronomical data essential for celestial navigation. These books were the captain's most trusted advisors, their pages containing the accumulated wisdom of generations of navigators. But the library also reveals the man's broader interests. There are volumes of poetry, perhaps Byron or Coleridge, whose words captured the romance and danger of the sea. A well-worn Bible rests among the navigation texts, its pages marked with passages that provided comfort during times of storm and uncertainty. Several volumes of natural history suggest a mind curious about the world beyond the ship's rails, interested in the birds and sea creatures that shared the ocean's vastness. A journal of personal observations lies among the books, its pages filled with the captain's thoughts about the places he had visited and the people he had met. Here are sketches of exotic birds seen in tropical waters, pressed flowers from distant shores, and careful descriptions of local customs observed in foreign ports. This was his private record, the diary of a man who saw the world as few of his contemporaries ever could. The sleeping alcove in one corner of the cabin. A built-in bunk serves as the captain's private quarters within his quarters. The bunk is fitted with storage drawers underneath and surrounded by curtains that could be drawn for privacy during the day or warmth during cold nights. The bedding is simple but well-made linen sheets and wool blankets that speak of practical comfort rather than luxury. Above the bunk, small shelves hold the items a man might need within arm's reach during the night. A water carafe and cup, a small clock whose ticking once marked the passage of the night watches, a candle holder with the stub of a candle that provided light for late-night reading or early morning preparations. The pillow still bears the impression of a headband, will never rest there again, and the blankets are arranged as if their owner had simply stepped away for a moment. This intimate space speaks of the solitary nature of command, of nights when the captain lay listening to the sounds of his ship, interpreting every creak and groan, every change in the wind's song or the pattern of waves against the hull. The ship's chronometer mounted on the wall beside the desk in a specially designed case that protects it from the ship's motion. Hangs the ship's chronometer, the most valuable and important instrument aboard. This precision timepiece, made by the finest clockmakers in London, was the key to determining longitude, the east-west position that was so crucial for safe navigation. The chronometer is housed in a brass case within a wooden box, the whole assembly suspended on gimbals that keep it perfectly level regardless of the ship's motion. The face is white porcelain with black Roman numerals, elegant in its simplicity. The hands are stopped now, frozen at a moment that marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. This instrument represented the pinnacle of 18th century technology, the result of decades of experimentation and refinement by the greatest minds of the age. It was worth more than most men earned in a lifetime, and its accuracy could mean the difference between reaching port safely and being lost forever in the vastness of the ocean. The weather glass. On the wall beside the chronometer hangs a barometer, its mercury column long since settled but its brass case still gleaming softly in the cabin's perpetual twilight. This was the captain's window into the sky's intentions, the instrument that warned of approaching storms and promised fair weather for days ahead. The barometer's face is marked with the traditional weather predictions: stormy, rain, change, fair, and very dry. These simple words carried profound meaning for a ship's captain whose decisions about when to sail and when to seek shelter could determine the fate of ship and crew. The brass case is engraved with nautical motifs, anchors, and rope work, sailing ships, and compass roses, decorations that turned a practical instrument into a work of art. The captain's uniform. Hanging from a peg on the cabin wall is the captain's dress uniform, perfectly preserved in the dry air of the sealed cabin. The coat is of dark blue wool with brass buttons bearing the anchor of his profession. The fabric has faded slightly but retains its dignity. The gold lace at the cuffs and collar still bright against the darker wool. The uniform speaks of ceremony and tradition, of the formal occasions when a ship's captain represented not only his vessel but his nation and his profession. This coat was worn during official visits to foreign ports, during inspections by naval officers, during the solemn ceremonies that marked the passage from one command to another. Beside the coat hangs the captain's sword, its blade still bright. In its scabbard, its hilt decorated with the same nautical motifs found throughout the cabin. This was both a symbol of authority and a practical weapon. Though its primary purpose was ceremonial, a visible reminder of the captain's responsibility for the lives and welfare of all who sailed in. Or his command. The ship's bell and time. In one corner of the cabin stands a small ship's bell, its bronze surface green with age, but its voice still clear and true. This bell once marked the passage of time aboard the Celestial Grace *, its ringing dividing the day into the traditional watches that govern life at sea. For bells, 6 bells. 8 bells each chime carried meaning, announcing the change of watch, the call to meals, the moments of ceremony that punctuated the long days at sea. The bell is mounted on a wooden base carved with the ship's name and the date of her launching. On its rim runs an inscription in Latin, Tempus fugit, time flies. These words carry special meaning in the context of the sea, where time and tide wait for no man, where the ability to read time's passage in the movement of sun and stars could mean the difference between life and death. The medicine chest. Against one wall stands the captain's medicine chest, a wooden cabinet filled with the remedies and instruments that serve the ship's crew in times of illness or injury. The chest is divided into numerous small compartments, each labeled with the name of its contents in the captain's careful script. Here are bottles of laudanum for pain, quinine for fever, and the various herbs and compounds that represented the extent of maritime medicine in the 18th century. Surgical instruments rest in felt-lined cases, bone saws and forceps, lancets for bloodletting, and the crude but effective tools that a ship's captain might need to use when no surgeon was available. The medicine chest reminds us that a ship's captain was responsible not only for navigation and seamanship but for the health and welfare of his crew. Far from any physician or hospital, he might be called upon to treat injuries, set broken bones, or make the difficult decisions that meant the difference between life and death for the men under his command. The captain's telescope. On the desk beside the charts lies the captain's personal telescope, a beautiful instrument of brass and mahogany that extended his vision far beyond the natural horizon. The telescope is collapsed to its shortest length, but when extended, it would have allowed the captain to identify ships at great distances, to study the characteristics of unknown coastlines, to search for the landmarks that confirmed his position. The telescope's brass tube is engraved with the maker's name and the date of manufacture, along with decorative elements that proclaim it a precision instrument worthy of a ship's captain. The leather covering on the grip is worn smooth by countless hands, shaped by years of use in all weather conditions. This telescope was the captain's eye upon the world, his means of extending his awareness beyond the ship's immediate surroundings. Through its lens, he studied weather patterns forming on the distant horizon, identified the flags of approaching vessels, and searched for the first glimpse of land after weeks at sea. The seal and documents, not in a leather portfolio on the desk, lie the ship's official documents, the papers that prove the Celestial Grace's right to sail the seas and engage in lawful trade. The ship's registration bears the seal of the Port Authority, pressed into red wax that has cracked with age but still shows the anchor and crown that symbolized maritime authority. Letters of credit from merchant houses in London and Boston speak of the commercial relationships that made the ship's voyages profitable. Bills of lading detail the cargoes carried from port to port: cotton from Charleston, rum from Jamaica, manufactured goods from the mills of Manchester and Birmingham. These documents were the lifelines of trade, the written agreements that bound together the far-flung ports of the Atlantic world. A letter of marque, yellowed with age, authorized the ship to act against the nation's enemies in time of war. This document transformed the peaceful merchant vessel into a weapon of state, empowering her captain to capture enemy ships and claim them as prizes. The letter bears the signature of an admiral whose name has been forgotten by history, but whose authority once extended across the vast expanse of the ocean. The captain's personal journal. Separate from the ship's official log lies the captain's personal journal, bound in leather and filled with his private thoughts about life at sea. Unlike the formal entries in the ship's log, these pages reveal the man behind the uniform, his hopes and fears, his observations about the world he encountered in his travels. Here are descriptions of storms that tested both ship and crew, accounts of calms that stretched for days under a merciless sun, and reflections on the beauty of sunrise over an empty ocean. The captain wrote of the loneliness of command, of the weight of responsibility for the lives of his crew, of the constant tension between the desire for home and the call of the sea. The journal also contains more personal entries, memories of loved ones left behind, plans for retirement to a cottage overlooking the harbor, dreams of the day when he might lay down the burden of command and become simply a man who had once sailed the seas. These intimate thoughts provide a window into the soul of a man whose professional life demanded strength and certainty, but whose private moments were filled with the same doubts and longings that touch all human hearts. The cabin shadows. As the light continues to fade, the shadows in the cabin deepen and shift, creating patterns that seem to move with a life of their own. These shadows hold the memory of all the evenings when the captain sat at his desk, working by candlelight while the ship rolled gently beneath him, and the night watch kept their vigil on deck above. In these shadows, you can almost see the ghost of the man who once called this cabin home, bent over his charts, calculating the ship's position, writing letters to distant family, reading by the light of a single candle while the rest of the ship slept. The shadows preserve his presence like a photograph made of darkness and memory. The interplay of light and shadow creates an ever-changing tableau, a silent drama played out in shades of gold and brown. Each object in the cabin participates in this dance, casting its own shadow, reflecting its portion of the light, contributing to the overall harmony of a space that has found perfect peace in its solitude. The sounds of memory. Though the cabin is silent now, it holds the memory of all the sounds that once filled this space. The scratch of quill on parchment as the captain made his daily entries, the tick of the chronometer marking time, the rustle of charts being unfolded and studied. These sounds are part of the cabin's essence, woven into the very fabric of its being. You can almost hear the captain's footsteps on the deck above, the creak of rigging in the wind, the distant sound of waves against the hull. These ghost sounds create a symphony of memory, a composition played by instruments of wood and brass, rope and canvas, wind and wave. The silence itself has become meaningful, pregnant with the weight of all the words that were once spoken here, all the decisions that were made, all the hopes and fears that were shared with the vast indifference of the sea. This silence is not empty but full, not vacant but complete. The eternal voyage. As you stand in the captain's quarters, surrounded by the artifacts of a life lived in service to the sea, you begin to understand that this cabin is more than just a room. It is a vessel itself, carrying forward the memory of all who sailed aboard the Celestial Grace. The ship may have completed her final voyage, but her story continues in the preserved perfection of this space. The captain's quarters have become a sanctuary of memory, a place where time has agreed to stand still so that the essence of maritime life can be preserved for future generations to discover and understand. Every object tells part of the story, every shadow holds a memory, every beam and board participates in the ongoing narrative of humanity's relationship with the sea. This is more than preservation, it is transformation. The cabin has evolved from a working space into something approaching the sacred, a temple dedicated to the courage and skill of those who dared to venture beyond the sight of land in search of new horizons. The captain's spirit lives on in every carefully maintained detail, in every artifact that speaks of duty and dedication, adventure and achievement, the light of memory. The golden light that filters through the stern window seems to come not from any earthly source, but from the accumulated glow of all the sunrises and sunsets the captain witnessed from this very spot. This is the light of memory made visible, the illumination that comes from understanding the full weight of human experience contained within these walls. In this light, the simplest objects become profound. The captain's coffee cup, still stained with the residue of his final drink, speaks of the small comforts that sustained him through long voyages. The worn spot on the deck where he stood to take his noon observations connects him to the eternal rhythm of sun and earth, the celestial dance that guided his ship across the trackless ocean. Every detail contributes to the larger story. Every element participates in the preservation of a way of life that has passed into history but lives on in spaces like this. The cabin serves as a bridge between past and present, a place where the modern visitor can touch the reality of maritime life as it was lived centuries ago, the captain's legacy. In the perfect preservation of his quarters, the captain has achieved a kind of immortality. His spirit remains present in every carefully arranged object, every lovingly maintained instrument, every personal artifact that speaks of his character and his calling. This is his legacy, not just the ships he commanded or the cargoes he delivered, but the example he set of dedication to duty and mastery of his craft. The cabin stands as testimony to the qualities that made the great age of sail possible: precision, courage, self-reliance, and the ability to find beauty and meaning in the midst of danger and uncertainty. These qualities are preserved here like flowers pressed between the pages of a book, available for contemplation by all who have the wisdom to appreciate their value. The captain's quarters remind us that heroism is not always found in dramatic gestures or momentous events. Sometimes it lies in the quiet competence of daily duty, in the careful attention to detail that means the difference between success and failure, in the willingness to accept responsibility for the welfare of others, even when the cost is high. The eternal present. As your exploration of the captain's quarters draws to a close, you realize that time has indeed stood still in this place. The past is not past but present, not gone but preserved, not lost but waiting to be discovered by those who have the patience to look and the wisdom to understand. The cabin exists in a state of eternal readiness, as if the captain might return at any moment to complete his unfinished log entry, to plot a new course to distant shores, to take up once again the burden and the joy of command. This readiness is part of the cabin's magic, its ability to make the past seem as real and immediate as the present moment. In this timeless space, the boundaries between then and now become meaningless. The captain's experiences become our own. His challenges are challenges, his achievements are inspiration. The cabin serves as a gateway to understanding, a portal through which we can glimpse the reality of life in an age when the sea was both highway and wilderness, when navigation was an art as much as a science, when every voyage was an adventure into the unknown. The silence of the cabin is complete now, but it is a silence that speaks volumes. It tells of dedication and duty, of courage and competence, of the endless human quest to push beyond the known boundaries of the world. In this silence, the captain's story continues, his legacy lives on, and his spirit finds eternal peace in the perfect preservation of the space he once called home. As you prepare to leave this sanctuary of memory, you carry with you the profound peace that comes from understanding the continuity of human experience. The captain's quarters stand as proof that some things transcend time, that dedication and courage create their own monuments, that the human spirit can find immortality in the simple act of doing one's duty with skill and The door closes softly behind you, but the memory of the cabin remains a perfect circle of light and shadow, memory and dreams, past and present united in the timeless embrace of the eternal sea. The artist's silent loft, light and memory in Montmartre. The narrow stairs creak softly as you ascend, each step worn smooth by countless journeys to it and from the world below. The handrail, once painted white but now weathered to the color of old bone, guides you upward through the dim stairwell that smells of linseed oil and turpentine, of old plaster and the faint sweetness of roses that once bloomed in window boxes 5 stories down. At the top, a heavy wooden door stands slightly ajar, as if someone had stepped out for just a moment and forgotten to pull it closed. You push it open with the gentlest touch, and it swings inward on hinges that whisper rather than creak, revealing a world suspended in golden dust and perpetual afternoon light. This is the atelier of Celeste Moreau, a painter whose name never found its way into the history books, but whose spirit still inhabits every corner of this high-ceilinged sanctuary beneath the zinc roofs of Montmartre. The year was 1903 when she last touched brush to canvas here, when the morning light last fell across her easel, when the coffee grew cold in the cup that still sits on the windowsill, waiting for lips that will never return to taste its bitter comfort. The light of memory. The light enters through a vast skylight that dominates the slanted ceiling, its glass panels cracked in delicate spider webs that scatter the afternoon sun into fragments of gold and amber. Some panes are missing entirely, replaced by boards that create patterns of shadow and illumination across the wooden floor below. This was the artist's most precious possession, not the paints or brushes or canvases, but this generous flood of northern light that poured down from the sky like a benediction. Dust motes dance in the light beams, their slow ballet unchanged by the passage of decades. They rise and fall with the gentle currents of air that move through the loft, stirred by the breathing of the old building, the expansion and contraction of timber and stone that follows the rhythm of day and night, season following season. The light has a quality here that exists nowhere else, filtered through the atmosphere of Paris, softened by the moisture that rises from the Seine, touched by the smoke of 1,000 chimneys and the dreams of artists who have always gathered it. These heights above the city, it is light that has been transformed by its journey, made gentle and forgiving, perfect for capturing the subtle gradations of color and shadow that were Celeste's particular gift. Where the light falls strongest, near the great skylight, the wooden floor has faded to the color of honey, bleached by decades of sun. But in the corners and beneath the furniture, the original dark stain remains, creating a map of light's daily passage across the loft. This floor has known the pressure of easels, the scatter of paint drops, the soft footfall of bare feet on cold mornings when inspiration came before the sun. The easel and canvas. In the center of the room, positioned to catch the best light, stands an easel of dark wood worn smooth by constant handling. It holds a canvas that was never finished, a portrait of a woman with dark eyes and a secretive smile, her face emerging from the background like a figure stepping out of dreams. The paint is still thick in places, built up in impasto strokes that catch the light and throw tiny shadows, giving the unfinished face a sense of movement and life. The woman in the portrait might be Celeste herself, captured in a mirror's reflection, or perhaps it is someone else, a friend, a lover, a stranger glimpsed in a cafe who haunted the artist's imagination. The eyes are complete, dark, and knowing, filled with an expression that seems to shift in the changing light. But the mouth remains only a suggestion, a few confident strokes of rose and coral that hint at words that will never be spoken. The brushwork shows the influence of the Impressionists who were just beginning to be accepted by the establishment. But there is something more personal here, a way of seeing that belongs to Celeste alone. The colors are subtle dusty roses and sage greens, the blue-gray of Paris twilight, the warm ochre of ancient stone. These are the colors of a woman who found beauty in quiet moments, who saw poetry in the ordinary intersections of light, shadow. On the easel's ledge, a palette knife lies crusted with paint that dried decades ago but still shows the ghost of colors that once flowed like liquid silk. Beside it, a small mirror reflects the changing light, probably used to check the accuracy of self-portraits or to catch difficult angles of illumination. The palette. On a small table beside the easel rests Celeste's palette, a piece of wood, worn thin by years of scraping and cleaning, its surface stained with the archaeology of countless paintings. The palette is kidney-shaped, fitted with a thumb hole polished smooth by the artist's grip, and across its surface the dried remnants of her final painting session create an abstract composition more beautiful than many finished works. Here are mountains of ultramarine blue, dried to powder but still holding the memory of summer skies. Cadmium yellow forms tiny peaks like minute suns, while alizarin crimson has darkened to the color of old wine. Titanium white, the color she used most, spreads across one corner in gentle hills and valleys, mixed with other pigments to create the subtle flesh tones and cloud colors that filled her canvases. The palette tells the story of her working method, careful, deliberate, with colors mixed in small quantities and used quickly before they could dry. She was not wasteful with her materials, for paint was expensive and her means were limited, but she was generous with her vision, using color with the confidence of someone who understood its emotional language, who knew that a touch of warm yellow could suggest hope, that a hint of cool blue could evoke the melancholy of evening. A palette knife lies beside the paints, its blade flexible and responsive, shaped by years of mixing colors and scraping clean the working surface. The handle is worn smooth, shaped to fit perfectly in the artist's hand, and along its edge are traces of paint from that final session, evidence of the last colors she mixed, the last artistic decision she made. The brushes, arranged in cracked ceramic jars around the workspace, are Celeste's brushes, each one a tool shaped by use to perform specific tasks. The jars themselves tell stories. One is a mustard pot from a left bank bistro, another a medicine bottle with the label still partially legible, a third a simple water glass etched with the name of a cafe that closed decades ago. The brushes stand at attention like a small army awaiting orders that will never come. There are flat brushes for broad washes of color, their bristles splayed and worn but still holding their shape. Round brushes for detail work, their points still sharp, despite their age. Fan brushes for blending and texture, their bristles spread like tiny feathers. Each brush shows the patina of use, the slight bend that comes from being held in a particular way, the wear pattern that speaks of an artist's individual technique. Some brushes are stained with colors that have become part of their being. A fine liner brush permanently tinted with burnt umber from outlining figures, a larger brush that carries the ghost of cerulean blue from painting countless skies. These stains are like memories made visible, reminders of all the paintings these tools helped bring to life. In one jar, a brush soaks in what was once turpentine, but has long since evaporated, leaving only a brown residue at the bottom. The brush handle bears the marks of teeth. Celeste had the habit of biting her brush when concentrating, unconscious gesture that left tiny dents in the wood, personal signatures as individual as fingerprints. The paintings, against the walls, canvases lean in casual arrangements, creating a gallery of Celeste's artistic journey. Some are finished works, complete statements of vision and technique. Others are studies and experiments, half-formed ideas captured in quick strokes and abandoned when inspiration moved in new directions. Near the window, a series of street scenes captures the life of Montmartre in the early years of the century. Here is the Place du Tertre on a market day, the crowds rendered in loose, impressionistic strokes that somehow convey the energy and movement of the scene. The figures are not detailed portraits but suggestions of humanity: a woman in a blue shawl, a child chasing pigeons, an old man feeding cats from his lunch. Another canvas shows the view from this very window, the rooftops of Paris stretching to the horizon, punctuated by chimney pots and church spires. The painting captures a particular moment of light, perhaps late afternoon in autumn when the air is clear and the stone of the city glows like gold. Every roof tile seems individually observed, every shadow carefully noted, yet the overall effect is one of spontaneous beauty. A still life occupies a corner easel, a simple arrangement of fruit and flowers that transforms the ordinary into something luminous. The apples are not perfect specimens, but real fruit with blemishes and character. The roses are beginning to drop their petals, and this imperfection makes them more beautiful, more human. Celeste saw beauty in transience, in the moment before perfection fades. The sketchbooks, on a shelf made from a plank and two brackets, a collection of sketchbooks holds the daily record of an artist's scene. These are not the formal drawings meant for exhibition, but the quick observations, the visual notes, the experiments in line and form that were the foundation of Celeste's larger works. One sketchbook lies open to a page of figure studies, dancers from the Moulin Rouge captured in quick, confident strokes. The figures are alive with movement, their poses caught in the split second between one gesture and the next. These drawings show an artist who understood the human form not as a static object but as a vessel for emotion and energy. Another book contains architectural studies, the Gothic details of Notre Dame, the Art Nouveau curves of a new metro entrance, the classical proportions of the Pantheon. These drawings reveal an artist who found inspiration everywhere, who saw the city as a vast museum of form and light, constantly changing but eternally beautiful. The sketches of people are particularly touching, the faits habitués drawn from memory, children playing in the square below, the faces of friends and strangers who caught the artist's eye. Each drawing is signed with initials and dated, creating a chronology of seeing that spans several years. The last dated sketch is from October 1903, showing a view of the Sacré-Cœur under construction, its white domes rising above the scaffolding like hopes made manifest. The personal touches. Scattered throughout the loft are the small personal items that make a working space a home. On the windowsill, beside the cold coffee cup, sits a small pot of dried lavender, its flowers long since faded to gray but still holding a whisper of their original fragrance. This was perhaps a gift from a friend in Provence, or a souvenir of a painting trip to the countryside, a reminder of landscapes beyond the urban boundaries of Paris. A shawl hangs over the back of a chair, soft woolen shades of blue and green, handwear upon with the kind of careful attention that speaks of love. It might have been made by Celeste's mother, a connection to family left behind in pursuit of artistic dreams. Or perhaps it was a gift from a friend who understood that artists' lofts are often cold and that warmth comes in many forms. On a small table near the sleeping alcove, a collection of objects creates an informal still life, a hand mirror with silver backing that has darkened with age, a hairbrush with a few auburn strands still caught in its bristles, a small bottle of perfume with an ornate stopper. These intimate items speak of the woman behind the artist, reminding us that creativity emerges from a fully lived life. The letters. In a wooden box on the desk, tied with faded ribbon, lies a collection of letters that tells the story of relationships maintained across distance and time. The box is made of olive wood, smooth and warm to the touch, with a small brass plate engraved with the initial CN. These letters are artifacts of connection, evidence of the network of friendship and family that sustained the artist in her solitary pursuit. One letter lies outside the box, unfolded, and reads so many times that the creases are wearing through. The handwriting is masculine, bold, and confident, and though the words are in French, the emotional content transcends language. This is a love letter, written by someone who understood the artist's calling and supported it even when it meant separation and sacrifice. The letter speaks of shared memories, walks along the Seine at sunset, evenings spent in small cafes, discussing art and life, plans for a future that would somehow reconcile love with artistic ambition. The paper is cream-colored, expensive, suggesting a writer of some means, and it carries the faint scent of tobacco and cologne, masculine scents, that seem out of place in this feminine sanctuary. Beside the letter lies an envelope, addressed but never sent, its stamp uncancelled. The handwriting is Celeste's, more delicate than the masculine script of the received letter, and the address is in the countryside outside Paris. This unsent letter holds secrets, perhaps words of love that were never expressed, apologies that were never offered, or simply thoughts too private to share even with the one who inspired them. The sleeping alcove in one corner of the loft, separated from the working area by a curtain of faded silk, lies Celeste's sleeping space. The bed is simple, an iron frame painted white, with a mattress covered by linen sheets, and a quilt made from squares of fabric in soft pastels. The quilt might be her own work, a project for quiet evenings when the light was too poor for painting. But her hands needed to remain busy. Beside the bed, a small table holds the essentials of nighttime, a candle and a brass holder, its wax pulled and hardened in abstract shapes. A glass of water that has long since evaporated, leaving only mineral stains on the bottom, and a book with a ribbon bookmark marking a page that will never be turned again. The book is a volume of poetry, Baudelaire's *Les Fleurs du Mal*, with margins filled with Celeste's notes and reactions. Her handwriting in the margins reveals a mind that engaged deeply with art in all its forms, that found in poetry the same truths she sought to express in paint. Certain lines are underlined, phrases that spoke to her artist's soul, words that probably influenced her choice of subjects and her approach to color and composition. On the wall above the bed hangs a small painting, not one of her own, but a gift from a fellow artist perhaps. It shows a simple landscape, a field of poppies under a summer sky, painted with the kind of direct simplicity that speaks of genuine feeling rather than technical ambition. This painting watched over her sleep, its peaceful beauty the last thing she saw each night and the first thing that greeted her each morning. The kitchen corner in one corner of the loft. A small area serves as kitchen, a simple arrangement that speaks of an artist's practical needs rather than culinary ambitions. A 2-burner gas ring sits on a wooden counter, its blue enamel chipped but still serviceable. Beside it, a coffee pot of blackened metal holds the residue of the last coffee Celeste ever made. A bitter reminder of mornings that began with hope and strong coffee. The shelves above hold the basics: a loaf of bread, now petrified but still holding its shape, a jar of preserved fruit with its seal intact, a bottle of wine with its cork still in place. These provisions speak of someone who lived simply, who found satisfaction in basic pleasures, who preferred to spend her limited resources on paint and canvas rather than elaborate meals. A small table serves as both preparation area and dining space, its surface scarred by years of use. On it sits a plate with the remains of what might have been her last meal: a few crumbs of bread, the core of an apple brown with age, a knife with its blade still bright despite the years. This simple meal speaks of the solitary nature of the artist's life, of meals taken quickly between painting sessions, of sustenance that fed the body while the real nourishment came from the work itself. A window above the kitchen area looks out over the city, providing a different view from the main studio space. This window faces east, catching the morning light that would have illuminated Celeste's breakfast preparations, reminding her each day of the world beyond her artistic sanctuary. The music stand. Near the window, a music stand holds sheets of handwritten music, the notes carefully drawn in India ink that has faded to brown but remains legible. The music is a simple melody, perhaps a popular song of the era or a composition by a friend. The paper is foxed with age, stained by humidity and time. but the notes seemed to hover on their staves like birds on telephone wires, ready to take flight if someone were to play them. Music was clearly important to Celeste's creative process. On a small table nearby sits a metronome, its pendulum frozen at some random angle, and beside it a pitch pipe, its metal gleaming despite the years. These tools suggest evenings spent in musical practice. Or perhaps they were props for painting studies. In the relationship between sound and visual art, investigations into the synesthesia that allows some artists to hear colors and see music. The presence of musical instruments and notation in an artist's studio speaks to the interconnectedness of the arts in the Belle Époque, when painters and musicians and writers moved in the same circles, influencing each other's work, finding in their various media different expressions of the same fundamental truths about beauty and human experience. The mirror. Against one wall leans a large mirror in an ornate frame, its silver backing darkened with age and spotted with the mysterious patterns that old mirrors develop. This was Celeste's tool for self-examination, both literal and metaphorical, a means of checking the accuracy of self-portraits, and a window into the soul that she tried to capture on canvas. The mirror reflects the room at an angle that reveals corners and perspectives not visible from the center of the space. In its darkened surface, the loft seems different, more mysterious, as if the mirror shows not just the physical space, but the emotional landscape of creativity. The reflection includes the easel with its unfinished portrait, creating a recursive image, a painting of a woman reflected in a mirror that reflects a painting of a woman. The frame of the mirror is carved with Art Nouveau motifs, flowing lines, and stylized flowers that were fashionable when Celeste occupied this space. The carving is still sharp despite its age, the gold leaf still clinging to the raised areas, though it has darkened to the color of old brass. This mirror was clearly chosen with care, an investment in a tool that was also a work of art. The color studies tacked to one wall is a series of small canvas boards, each one exploring a different aspect of color theory. These are not finished paintings but experiment studies in the way colors interact, investigations into the emotional weight of different hues, explorations of the way light affects perception. One study shows the same simple subject appear on a white cloth painted at different times of day. The morning version is cool and precise, with clear shadows and definite forms. The noon study is brilliant and somewhat harsh, with colors bleached by strong light. The evening painting is warm and mysterious, with forms dissolving into shadow and suggestion. These studies reveal an artist deeply committed to understanding her medium, willing to repeat the same subject until she had mastered its possibilities. Another series explores the color of shadows, challenging the conventional wisdom that shadows are simply the absence of light. Celeste's shadows are filled with color purples and blues and greens that dance across the surfaces of objects, revealing the complex reality of reflected light and atmospheric perspective. These studies show an artist ahead of her time, anticipating developments in color theory that would not be widely accepted for decades. The still life corner. In one corner of the loft, a permanent still life arrangement sits on a small table, draped with fabric that was once white but has aged to cream. The arrangement is simple but carefully composed: a brass candlestick with a candle burned down to a stub, a wine bottle empty of everything but memories, and a bowl of fruit that has long since mummified but still holds its essential forms. This still life was clearly a favorite subject, painted and repainted as the light changed, as the fruit aged, as the artist's understanding deepened. There are canvases throughout the studio that show versions of this same arrangement, each one exploring different aspects of form and color, light and shadow. The repetition speaks of an artist who found endless fascination in the simplest subjects, who understood that mastery comes through deep observation rather than constant novelty. The fabric draping the table is worn soft with age. Its folds permanently set buyers in the same position. Here and there, drops of paint mark places where Celeste's brush touched the cloth, accidental additions that have become part of the composition. These paint drops are like signatures, evidence of the artist's presence, reminders of the countless hours spent studying the play of light on fabric. The library. On shelves made from planks and bricks, Celeste's library reveals the breadth of her interests and the sources of her inspiration. Here are art books, their pages heavy with reproductions of masterworks from the Louvre and other great museums. The books are well used, their spines cracked from frequent opening, their pages marked with notes and sketches that show an artist learning from the masters. Poetry occupies a significant portion of the collection, not just Baudelaire, but Verlaine and Mallarmé, Rimbaud and Apollinaire. These volumes are annotated with the same care given to the art books, their margins filled with responses and reactions, connections drawn between verbal and visual imagery. For Celeste, poetry and painting were related arts, different ways of capturing the ineffable moments when beauty reveals itself to human perception. There are technical manuals, as well books on color theory, anatomy, perspective, the practical knowledge that underlies artistic expression. These books are dog-eared and stained with paint, evidence of constant consultation during the working process. Bookmark ribbons mark particularly important passages, and loose sheets of paper inserted between pages hold notes and diagrams that elaborate on the printed text. The window garden. On the wide sill of the main window, a collection of small pots holds the remains of what was once a garden. The plants are long dead, their leaves reduced to brown skeletons, but their pots remain, arranged with the care of someone who found beauty in growing things. These were probably herbs and flowers chosen for their colors as much as their practical use as models for still life paintings, sources of natural pigments, living examples of the color relationships that fascinated the artist. One pot still holds a recognizable planted geranium whose dried flowers retain a hint of their original red. Another contains what might have been mint, its stem still showing the square cross-section characteristic of the herb family. A third pot is filled with soil from which protrudes a single stem, impossible to identify now, but once perhaps a source of joy and inspiration. The window garden speaks of an artist who found inspiration in all aspects of the natural world, who understood that creativity flourishes when surrounded by living beauty. Even in the urban environment of Montmartre, Celeste created her own small piece of countryside, her own connection to the cycles of growth and decay that underlie all artistic creation. The correspondences scattered across the desk are letters from other artists, evidence of the community that sustained creative individuals in their often solitary pursuits. These letters speak of shared struggles and mutual encouragement, of exhibitions and sales, of the practical concerns that occupy artists' minds when they are not actually creating. One letter from someone signing himself Henry discusses a group exhibition being planned for a small gallery on the right bank. The handwriting is excited, optimistic, full of plans for the future. Henry writes about the changing art world, about new techniques and new ways of seeing that are challenging the established order. This letter places Celeste in the context of her time, shows her as part of the artistic ferment that was transforming Parisian culture. Another correspondent, signing herself Marie, writes about a painting trip to Brittany, describing the quality of light on the coast, the colors of the sea at different times of day. Marie's letter is illustrated with small sketches in the margins, quick studies of fishing boats and seascapes that bring her words to life. This correspondence reveals the network of women artists who supported each other in a world that often failed to take their work seriously. The unfinished business. Throughout the loft, there are signs of projects interrupted, work left incomplete, A canvas stretched on its frame but never primed, ready for a painting that was never begun, a color study started but abandoned. Its subject suggested by a few quick strokes that hint at possibilities never explored. These unfinished works speak of an artist whose ambitions exceeded her time, who saw more opportunities for creation than life allowed her to complete. On the desk, a letter is begun but never finished, its few lines suggesting thanks for some kindness, or perhaps an explanation for some decision. The handwriting becomes less confident as it progresses, as if the writer found it increasingly difficult to express what needed to be said. The letter remains unsealed, its envelope addressed but never stamped, another piece of unfinished business in a life that ended too soon. A painting hangs half completed on its easel, its subject a view of the city at twilight. The sky is finished, a masterpiece of subtle color gradation that captures the exact moment when day surrenders to night. But the buildings below remain only sketched out lines, waiting for the details that would bring them to life. This painting, more than any other object in the loft, speaks of potential unrealized, of visions that existed complete in the artist's mind, but never found full expression on canvas. The light's journey. As the day progresses, the light in the loft changes character, moving across the space like a slow revelation. Morning light is cool and precise, perfect for the detailed work that requires clear vision. As the sun climbs higher, the light becomes warmer, more generous, illuminating colors with a richness that makes even the simplest objects glow with inner fire. The afternoon brings the most dramatic lighting, when the sun pours through the skylight at its steepest angle, creating pools of gold on the floor and casting everything into either brilliant illumination or deep shadow. This is the light that Celeste loved most, the light that appears in so many of her paintings, the light that transforms the ordinary loft into a cathedral of creativity. As evening approaches, the light begins its slow fade, becoming softer, more diffuse, taking on the blue-gray quality that is particular to Paris in the hours before sunset. This is the light of memory, the light that makes everything seem distant and dreamlike, the light in which the loft exists now, suspended between day and night, between presence and absence. The silence in the loft is complete but not empty. It is filled with the memory of all the sounds that once brought this space to life: the scrape of brush on canvas, the clink of palette knife against glass, the rustle of papers being shuffled, the soft footsteps of the artist moving from easel to window to examine her work in different lights. This silence holds conversations to discussions with visitors about technique and vision, arguments with herself about color choices and composition, the quiet words of encouragement she spoke to herself during difficult passages. The silence contains music as well, songs hummed while working, melodies that influenced the rhythm of brushstrokes, the internal music that guided the creation of visual harmonies. The silence is punctuated occasionally by the sounds of the building settling, the distant noise of traffic far below, the soft percussion of rain on the skylight when weather moves across the city. But these sounds only emphasize the essential quietude of the space, the peace that comes from total dedication to creative work. The artist's spirit, Celeste Merle, lives on in this space, not as a ghost but as a presence woven into the fabric of the loft itself. Her spirit inhabits every brushstroke on the canvases, every stain on the floor, every arrangement of objects that reveals her eye for composition. She is present in the choices she made, the colors she preferred, the subjects that drew her attention, the way she organized her space for maximum efficiency and inspiration. Her spirit is strongest near the easel, where she spent most of her waking hours. But it pervades the entire loft. It is in the gentle disorder that speaks of someone who valued creativity over tidiness, in the personal touches that made a working space a home, in the evidence of relationships maintained despite the solitary nature of her calling. The unfinished Painting on the easel is perhaps the strongest manifestation of her continuing presence. The painted eyes seem to follow visitors as they move through the space, and in certain lights, the suggested mouth seems about to speak. This painting embodies all of Celeste's hopes and dreams, all her technical skill and emotional depth, concentrated in a work that remains eternally on the verge of completion. The eternal present. Time has stopped in the loft, but it has not died. Instead, it has transformed into something else, a continuous present that holds all moments simultaneously. The morning when Celeste first climbed these stairs and saw the light pouring through the skylight exists alongside the afternoon when she set down her brush for the last time. Every painting session, every moment of discovery, every instant of frustration and triumph is preserved in the unchanging arrangement of the space. This eternal present makes the loft a place of pilgrimage for understanding the creative process. Here, removed from the rush of time, the essential elements of artistic creation can be studied and appreciated. The relationship between light and color, the connection between emotion and technique, the way personal vision transforms ordinary subjects into art. All these mysteries are present and available for contemplation. The loft serves as a reminder that creativity transcends the individual who practices it. Celeste's paintings are expressions of her unique vision, but they also participate in the larger human endeavor to make sense of existence through art. Her work connects her to all artists who have ever struggled to capture truth and beauty, who have ever sought to transform perception into permanent form. The continuing story. Though Celeste's story ended in 1903, the story of her loft continues. Every visitor who climbs the narrow stairs and pushes open the heavy door becomes part of its narrative. Each person who stands before the unfinished painting and wonders about the woman who created it adds another layer to the space's meaning. The loft has become a repository not just of one artist's life, but of all the hopes and dreams that drive creative individuals to persist despite difficulty and discouragement. It stands as testimony to the power of dedication, to the way passionate commitment to vision can create something that outlasts the individual who possessed it. In the changing light that moves across the space each day, in the dust that settles and is stirred up again, in the slow transformation of organic materials as they age and decay, the loft participates in the ongoing processes of time while remaining essentially unchanged. It has found its own form of immortality, not in preservation, but in the continuous recreation of its meaning by each new observer. The final light dot as the day ends and the light begins to fade. The loft settles into its evening quiet. The objects that seemed so alive in the strong afternoon light begin to merge with their shadows, creating the soft, indistinct forms that exist at the boundary between seeing and remembering. This is the hour when the space becomes most itself, when the presence of the absent artist is strongest, when the silence speaks most eloquently of lives lived in service to beauty. The unfinished painting catches the last light. It's painted, eyes glowing with an inner illumination that seems independent of any external source. For a moment, the boundary between art and life dissolves, and the painted woman seems as real as the woman who created her. In this twilight hour, the loft becomes a place where all times exist simultaneously, where the past is present and the present extends infinitely into the future. The city below begins to light its lamps, creating a constellation of human activity that stretches to the horizon. But here in the loft, time moves to a different rhythm, governed not by clocks and schedules, but by the eternal cycles of creation and contemplation, inspiration and expression, light and shadow. As darkness gently covers the skylight and the room settles into its nightly rest, the loft prepares for another day of silent testimony to the power of artistic vision. Tomorrow the light will return, the dust motes will resume their slow dance, and the unfinished painting will continue its eternal moment of becoming. The story continues. written not in words, but in the language of light and color, silence and memory, presence and absence combined in the perfect stillness of creative peace.